immigration and exploitation of immigrant labor, to show you the features that will be in all of the units. This one is titled Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Fire and Migrant Workers. And when we get there, you'll see that our journalist of the unit is Edward R. Murrow. Edward R. Murrow was a pioneer in investigating issues in investigative journalism on television. But we actually start a little earlier than this and go to newspapers. In the introduction to every unit, you'll see introduction, investigation, outcome. In the introduction is a lot of content. Also, an essential question. Every unit has one. In this case, it is how did journalists cover the exploitation of migrant and immigrant workers in the early to mid 20th century? The overview section will be very content rich. There will not only be Library of Congress resources, but also descriptions of the context and history of the eras that we're dealing with. We all know that the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire coverage led to what we have today as OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Administration, and Health Administration. Okay, then we switch and we go past the early 19th century into the mid 20th century, when television brought to us a new form of journalism. And we have to go on to the migrant farm workers. And when we look at those examples, we see something that exists even today. There are problems in today's factories with COVID outbreaks that we know affect immigrants more than they do others. As we'll see in these pictures of Cesar Chavez and other union organizers, the power of journalism was very, very strong to tell us this story. In every unit, there will be an annotated image. That's an image that you can see up close with a magnifier. But the reason I think this one's particularly important is it's a photograph. We want students to be able to evaluate everything they see, even visual cues have to be interpreted. The point of this flyer that went into newspapers was that every time you buy grapes, you're hurting poor children. At the very end of the unit, we find an opportunity to be your own journalist and examine an issue that you think deserves investigation today. And you get to create your own story. You can choose to do this as a video, or you can choose to do this as a newspaper. If you do a video, you're pretending that you are on 60 Minutes. You're the one who is Leslie Stahl or one of the journalists, and you create your own story. It might be very relevant to something that is an issue to students today, such as gun control, or it could be something having to do with COVID, for instance. But that is the creative part of every unit. So the tools that we're using are high content, investigative skills, looking at outcomes, creating your own creative interpretation, and making civic engagement work for the student in a very personal way, using primary sources they probably wouldn't find elsewhere, and devolving into a real engagement by the student.